MUN Cinema series is back in full swing, and here to talk about this week's offering is Noreen Golfman. Ghost Story, starring Casey Affleck, Rooney Mara, among others. The blurb on the MUN Cinema website says, quote, "This is one of those film blurbs that must be committed to not telling you anything. We can say that it's about the passage of time and the experience of grief. We can also say that it features Casey Affleck as the ghost of a young man, or a man who died young, leaving his wife Mara in the deepest sorrow. If you read the online reviews, you'll see that viewers hate it or love it. But if you have patience, appreciate the existential films of Antonioni, can let go of your desire for causal explanations, then you'll love this film. It's a journey in time itself, all 92 minutes of watching images that might not necessarily add up to what you're used to. Director Lowry has taken a huge risk relying on our childhood notions of ghosthood and turning them inside out, sideways and upside down. Casper, we hardly knew you." Directed by David Lowry. This isn't a Patrick Swayze remake, is it?
This is about as far removed from that film as you could possibly get. Yeah, it's, I would say it's an intellectual ghost story, really, or philosophical, existential. Hope those words aren't scaring anybody. I wrote in my blurb for the film that this is one of those films that you submit to, or you just decide to leave the theater. There are a lot of long takes, very European kind of filmmaking. The camera moves a bit, but mostly it's steady, very composed scenes. And there's a scene, for instance, has become kind of famous, in which the character played by Rooney Mara, this grieving widow, eats a pie. And that's really all. It goes on for a long time. I mean, imagine if you had a camera, just open take, watching you eat a pie. Nothing else is going on. Well, there's lots going on, but that makes audiences uncomfortable. So this is kind of a warning for people who think they're in for, I don't know, some kind of traditional or Stephen King version.
Okay.
The subject's the same. It's about sort of a psychological understanding of what a ghost might be for somebody.
Okay, so not exactly a horror film,
No, not at all.
I guess.
It's very psychological. I have a friend who's a filmmaker in Toronto. She stayed with me a few weekends ago, partly because she's still grieving. It's a 1-year anniversary of her husband's passing, and she carries pictures of him with her. So in our guest room, she had all these pictures on the table. She tells me that he's with her and that she communicates to him. So I'm not one of those people who would necessarily buy that very quickly. But spending the time with her, it's very much what Ghost Story is about. It's kind of putting you into the position of somebody who is grieving, and what that experience might be like. And one day the love of your life is there, and the next day he's not. And how do you cope with that? What do you tell yourself? How do you communicate? You don't just stop communicating with that person because he might have been taken from you. That's one of the ways of trying to understand what this film's really trying to get at. Okay.
And reviews seem to say it's also about kind of the passing of time. It's about attachment.
Right. It's, I guess, another unconventional aspect of it is that it plays a lot with time. You're in the present tense for some time, but then you start going into the 19th century. The ghost who does appear, walks through the film with a sheet over his head, shows up in all kinds of time frames. Teasing out our notions, I guess, that we have about them occupying some other limbo world permanently. And so at some point, our conventional sense of reality really starts to break down. And again, if you're the kind of film viewer who is really impatient with that and wants causal relations between points A or events A and events B, then this is not the movie for you. But if you're a thoughtful person and you want to see where the film is taking you and you want to just let go, sort of try and experience what the film is wants to take us through, then this is definitely worth watching.
Okay. I missed this film if it ever went through the theater.
Oh, I doubt it. I couldn't even imagine, like, Cineplex thinking, they might have looked at the blurb and said, no, this is not going to work.
How has it been received? What attracted you to this film?
Well, I know of the director. That's one thing. I read a lot about his influences. That's usually it tells you something about what kind of filmmaker he might be. And a filmmaker who I grew up studying in film studies, Chantal Akerman, also very challenging kind of filmmaker in the European tradition. Lots of long takes, few edits, very meditative. That's what film study students learn to love, not necessarily what you go into film school appreciating. And so that told me something. If one of his chief influences was Chantal Akerman, then I was kind of interested in seeing what he did. He's been very well received at film festivals, like Sundance loves him, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So he's not going to play mainstream. He's not making films for the mainstream.
Okay. Well, it's certainly a relief to get these kinds of films here in St. John's. So I'm sure plenty of people will be excited to see it.
I hope so.
Grand. Well, thanks for coming in. Anything you want to add about it? Or?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. It stars just Casey Affleck, who everybody knows, and Ruta Mara, who most people would know, I guess, these days. The Mara girls are getting pretty popular. But otherwise, I think I've said everything I can reveal.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All MUN cinema screenings are at 7 p.m. Thursdays in Cineplex Theaters in the Avalon Mall. All films are open to the public. MUN Cinema sets up a table near the cinema box office about an hour before each MUN Cinema screening, where tickets and passes may be purchased. Single tickets are $10 for students and seniors and $12 for everyone else.